Moving on to the next segment of today's show, it's going to feel good to actually talk about a football game. The Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football go into Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City, a place where even though over the last couple of years, Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, Stephon Diggs, that combination, they've won a lot of football games. Unfortunately, they have not been able to beat Kansas City. If you remember, Buffalo and Kansas City played in the regular season last year in Buffalo. Kansas City won that game. The Chiefs also beat the Bills in the AFC Championship game last year. And this was such a big game for both sides. For Buffalo, they were trying to show everyone that they are worthy to at least be considered as the best team in the AFC by beating the team that has gotten to the Super Bowl and that has represented the AFC in the big game over the last couple of years. Kansas City, even though they have that championship pedigree, they have lost some games this year, even before Sunday Night Football of this past week, where historically in years past, since Mahomes and Reed and Kelsey and Hill have been there, that is not usually a game they lose, and they've been losing now 3 regular season games. That is something that hasn't really gone on in the Mahomes era in Kansas City. And going into this game, I was really curious to see what would happen because Buffalo, I'll give them credit, after they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers week 1, and I think looking back at that game, we could just explain it as in the NFL, the best league in the world. There are some just crazy things that happen over the course of the season, especially during week 1, where going in, we don't really know much about every team and like what is really going on behind the scenes. There are plenty of surprising things that happened in week 1. If you remember, the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2020 beat the Colts in week 1. The Colts ended up making the playoffs, and the Jaguars literally have not won a football game since. And Buffalo lost to Pittsburgh in week 1. There were plenty of people who were a little bit concerned about Buffalo. And look, I was not the biggest Josh Allen fan throughout his first couple years in the NFL. He was bad as a rookie, and he wasn't great in year 2. But last year, the leap he was able to make was one of the more impressive improvements I've ever seen from a player, not only in the NFL, but in sports. And the addition of Stephon Diggs, Brian Daboll always putting him in a good position to succeed. Like, Allen was phenomenal in 2020. And then over the offseason, the Bills paid him with that big-time contract, making him the second highest quarterback in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. And based on how he played during the 2020 season, there was no doubt that Josh Allen deserved that contract. But I just wanted to see what he would be able to do for an encore going into the 2021 season. And the Bills had some lofty expectations, even though to most people, Kansas City were the overall favorites to win the AFC conference before the season started. The second option and the second most popular team in that conversation was the Buffalo Bills, based on everything that they were able to do last year, getting to the AFC Championship game, winning the AFC East. They were a really good team last year, and after week 1, they struggled. They've been playing some really good football. In week 2, they go out there and shut out the Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa got hurt in that game. Jacoby Brissett couldn't really move the ball against them. In week number 3, they beat Washington. In week 4, they dominate the Houston Texans. And one thing that had really stood out to me throughout the first couple games with Buffalo was last year, they were a really good football team, and they obviously made the AFC Championship game. But the main reason why they were able to do that was because of their offense. The problem with Buffalo last year was that if their offense wasn't getting the job done for them, their defense couldn't win them games. Their running game was non-existent. And I think this year, the scary thing about the Buffalo Bills is not only does Josh Allen and that offense look back and very capable, putting up 38 points in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs on the road at Arrowhead Stadium. And I get it. The Chiefs defense is an absolute embarrassment. We're going to get into the Chiefs defense before we end this segment. But Buffalo's offense looks legit. It looks like they are a pretty similar unit to last year in terms of ability to score points. And the crazy thing is, I don't know how their offensive coordinator, Brian Daboll, did not get a head coaching job. I'm pretty sure he's going to get one after this season. And he has done wonders with Josh Allen. He is one of the better offensive coordinators in the league. I think any team that's going to be looking for a head coach will be very lucky to have him. Brian Daboll has done a phenomenal job developing Josh Allen and improving his knowledge of the Bills offense, making him more comfortable. And the Bills offense is legit. But the scary thing is the Bills defense actually looks good. And there are plenty of talent on this Buffalo Bills defense with cornership guys like Tremont Edmonds and Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Matt Milano, the linebacker who didn't even play in this game. But the other encouraging news for Buffalo is that you're getting some contributions from some of the younger guys on this defense that haven't done much going into this point. Guys like Carlos Boogie Basham, their first-round pick this year. Even Gregory Rousseau, the kid from Miami, and Basham wasn't their first-round pick. He went in, I believe, the third or fourth round. But Rousseau they drafted. AJ Epinesa, a kid they drafted in 2020 from Iowa. He's been looking good. And Buffalo's defense has been legit. Sean McDermott has done a phenomenal job. You can't really say more than that. He has done such a good job building Buffalo into a winning culture. And now, all of a sudden, after a couple years in charge for Sean McDermott, the Bills are a place where free agents are going to want to go and play, and the Buffalo Bills deserve a lot of credit. I would totally understand the argument if you think right now the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC. But let's talk about Kansas City for a second. This game was very disappointing, and here's the problem, right? Kansas City, throughout their first couple games of the season, like we all agree, their defense was terrible. And if they're going to want to win games, their defense is going to have to be much better than the way it's played over the last couple of years. And I do think that, or the last couple of weeks, I should say, I do think that when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, that their defense has too much talent to be this bad. You know, I know I keep saying that, and I know their defense just hasn't been playing well, and I'm not expecting their defense to all of a sudden become a top 10 unit, but their defense is literally playing like one of the worst units in the NFL. It's ranked 31 overall right now in scoring defense. If that continues, then Kansas City isn't going to be a threat to win. You love Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback and his ability to make plays out of nothing, and I feel like whenever you have Mahomes, your team is always going to have a legitimate chance to win. But even in this game, at Arrowhead Stadium, when we've seen Mahomes make plenty of crazy comebacks, especially in big games in the playoffs, this Chief team felt dead. And Mahomes, in a big game where his team needed him the most, he didn't show up. This was honestly the worst game I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes play. And good for the Bills defense. They deserve a lot of credit for really going into this game and getting ready for a brawl. I hinted at it earlier in this show when we went across the league. If I was a Chief fan, I wouldn't only be disappointed that I lost this game. I would be disappointed because after the Super Bowl, and let's face it, we always say when discussing the Super Bowl, the Buccaneers deserve a lot of credit for their game plan, their ability to pressure Patrick Mahomes, take advantage of a beat-up Chiefs offensive line, and there have been a lot of defenses, including the Buffalo Bills, that have kind of copied that same formula that we saw from Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers in that Super Bowl, playing two safeties up top, saying we're going to refuse to let Tyreek Hill beat us, and really just playing bend, don't break, hold Kansas City to small gains and hope that they either mess up by turning the ball over, just don't give up the big play, and we will give our team a legitimate chance to win. Bend, but don't break. And that formula has been working. However, Kansas City, they don't play any defense. So if you're going to be able to score points on Kansas City, which really any capable offense should be able to, then you could have a good chance of beating them. But the reason why, if I were a Chief fan, I would be really upset is because after that Super Bowl, the narrative came out that your team is soft. There were plenty of Buccaneers players that were talking to the media after that game and just saying, yeah, Kansas City is a soft team. When you play that spread offense, a lot of times the conception will be that your team is soft. Brandon Staley, the Chargers coach, even said it in an interview over last week that went viral on social media. He said, you don't even have to be good you don't even have to be good to run the football to do it. The reason why, in many instances, you're going to run the football is to just make your team more physical. And that's in practice in the game. When you run the football, it improves your physicality on the trenches. And sometimes teams that play the spread offense and aren't able to run the football, they're labeled physically soft. And when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo came into this game expecting a bar room brawl. They came in with heavy hitters. You could tell from a very early point in this game that Buffalo came to play. They really wanted to win this game. And it makes sense. This game was so important to Buffalo. If the Bills were not going to be able to go into Arrowhead Stadium and win this game and beat these Kansas City Chiefs, this version of Kansas City where their defense just flat out isn't good, when were they ever going to be able to do that? And the fact that they were able to go into Arrowhead with the weather delay as well, just sitting in the locker room at halftime for an extra hour and just still be able to find a way, win this game and dominate, force all of the right turnovers at the right times. The Buffalo Bills deserve credit, but Kansas City is officially in trouble. They do not look like the same team they have been over the last couple years. And it's funny because last year, the Chiefs were a weird team. They went 15-1 in the regular season. They would always win regular season games. However, they went through a stretch where they just could not cover the spread. And that continued into this season. And when you're not able to cover the spread, even if you're able to win, that shows that in some way you're underachieving. You are not winning games by as much as Vegas thinks you should be. And I totally understand. In the NFL, there is no style points, right, for wins. It's just wins and losses. Whoever has the most wins, no matter who you beat, no matter how much you beat them by, in the end are going to find a way to get into the playoffs, whoever has the best record. However, Kansas City last year, when they were winning games from start to finish, still some of their games would be abnormally close late, and people would wonder why. And I think it's just because Kansas City was so much better than everyone last year in the AFC that they could kind of take a deep breath and not play the perfect game in order to get wins. This year, that is not the case. The gap between Kansas City and the rest of the AFC is no longer existent because the Chiefs don't play any defense. Their offense has been turning the ball over left and right, and you are not going to be able to win games like that. Props to the Bills, but the Chiefs are in trouble, and if they don't clean this up quick, they could still be in trouble going into the playoffs. Now, I still think Kansas City is a playoff team with everything going on with the Raiders, everything going on recently with Denver from an on-the-field perspective, losing their last two games after getting off to that 3-0 start. I still think Kansas City will find a way to get into the playoffs, and who knows, by January, maybe their defense will be playing much better and we'll look at Kansas City as a legit threat. But still, right now, the way I see it, Kansas City's defense needs to play better, and they have to stop turning the ball over, or else they're not going to have a shot to win many football games. Good job by the Bills. Statement win, finally getting the job done over Kansas City.